That's nice. I'm really starting to try to figure out the deck. And I'm quite perplexed. Several months ago, I bought some 3/8 Okumi marine plywood. I got it from my buddy Paul up in Des Moines, Iowa. Cedar Tree Boat Shop, so I got a little shout out for him. And it's sitting over behind the camera there, and I got two 4x8 sheets, which I think is way more than I need. I had thought about just putting it on here straight across, but a problem that I have is that at frame 7 up here, I'm more than 48 inches across. So I suppose I could run it crossways, but that's not going to work because I'm more than 48 inches this way. The other consideration that I'm thinking about is that I want this cleat here, and I really want this to be in a strong position, and that's part of the reason I've got this oak backing plate down here. So what I'm thinking is to put in a king plank, and that would be, I've decided to use oak because I've got some laying around. It'll match nicely with the oak here, gives me the option of leaving this natural colored, and I'm leaving it natural up there on the top of the forward bulkhead. So that would match nicely, and then it would allow me to fit the plywood in here on both sides, and now I have more than enough width. I can go with the grain of the plywood so that it's not on there sideways, and that quite honestly gives me options. The plans call for the deck to be canvassed in an old-fashioned way. I'm not completely opposed to doing that, and this would give me the option of doing that. The other option I have is to finish it off natural to where I have the beauty of that Okumi wood with just a natural wood finish. I can epoxy it and varnish it, or I could fiberglass it and then paint it with just a topside paint. So I've, in some respects, been putting off doing the deck simply because I couldn't figure out what I want, and I still don't know. But I always like having options, and this certainly will do that for me. So I figure the first thing I can do is go ahead and get this king plank in here. Now, I ran this through the bandsaw just a few minutes ago and resawed it to get it down to where it's 3/8 inch thick, and that went pretty good. I think I got a pretty uniform piece, and the bandsaw made a nice smooth cut. It won't take much to sand this. I'm about 2 1/4 inches wide, and I resawed that on the table saw just to make sure I had nice smooth edges coming along here. Now the next thing that I've done is I'm trying to figure out how wide this is, because I still got these little holes up here in front of the breast hook, and so what I'm trying to do is cut this out, because this is wider than the stem. So if I lay that on there, I've got about 1/4 inch on each side. So I took it on the bandsaw and set a fence so that I had 1/4 inch, and I've run that back about 2 1/2 inches. My distance from the edge of the stem here up to the forward edge of the planking at the very front here is about 2 1/8, so I should be about 1/8 of an inch over. But I've got a little bevel in here too, so that may take into account for that. I don't know that I can just cut this part out in the middle of here and get that bevel, so I think what I'm going to do, I'm still thinking about it, I may just cut it straight off across and have the bevel on both sides and then just glue it up. We're going to think about that for a minute, and then we'll do some more video. Well, okay. You know, I watched several other boat building projects. Sea Dreamer a little bit. I watched the Acorn to Arabella fellas a lot. Leo at Sampson Boat Company. Used to watch Tips for a Shipwright all the time. And The Art of Boat Building. Bob Emser is building a haven just like this, but he's still in the very beginning stages. I thought about this the other day. So oftentimes I'm doing these videos and I'm not altogether sure just exactly where I'm going and what I'm going to do, but I hope that there's some enjoyment in watching the process. And part of the point that I'm making with this is that anybody who's watching this is trying to figure out how to do this on their own. That's my whole purpose in doing this in the first place, is to try to provide some very detailed ideas and explanations about all the little tiny processes that go into boat building. And quite honestly, the fun of boat building is figuring out how we solve the next little problem. And so it occurred to me that you don't ever really know exactly how the video is going to turn out. And we've had a couple of videos where it didn't work. The first shear clamp episode, when it broke, and we had to start over. We didn't know. I thought it was going to go good, and it didn't. So anyway, tonight we didn't goof it up. And I had the time lapse on because this took a little while, but I was able to get this beveled without cutting it all the way through. And I got my bevel angle with the bevel tool, and I was able to get most of it on the bandsaw, but at a point I couldn't reverse the angle of the table on the bandsaw, so I had to just go ahead and figure out how to get the rest of it cut off, which just meant getting the jigsaw set to the bevel and then carefully cutting the rest of it. And so anyway, it's got the bevel in there that is the same angle as the stem here. So when I put this in here now, I successfully start covering up some of this gap that's in front of the breast hook, and I've got a nice tight fit up against the stem here. So I believe we'll call this episode King Plank, and see if I can get the rest of this fitted down on here. And then that should give us some more latitude and options for what we can do with the rest of the forward deck. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Okay, just some close-up follow-up shots. We've got that clamped down. And we come forward up here to where the cleat will be. And then up at the stem there, we've got the angle, the bevel cut in there, and that's nice and tight, and that's all fitting in nicely. So anyway, that should work. I've got it centered on there. I measured it on both ends at several stations just to make sure it's really centered, and we're very close. So this is going to give me the options now for putting the plywood on both sides of this. All right, more later.